Revelation 2883. From the 14th and the 15th of September 1943. Thoughts. Power from the spiritual realm. The purely spiritual exchange of thoughts with knowing forces of the beyond produces extremely valuable results which enrich the human being's knowledge, thus putting him into a state of cognition. And therefore he has already achieved spiritual progress, for knowledge is already a state of light. It makes happy and is at the same time an enablement for spiritual work. The human being can transfer his knowledge to his fellow human being and do something which requires love for his fellow human being. And every act of love earns him spiritual maturity. That is why the forces of light constantly seek to stay in contact with people in order to bring them knowledge, because they themselves know about the dark state. And thus they also know how it can best be remedied. Through love and through conscious acceptance of the divine word which is offered to them by the beings of light. Every human being is surrounded by beings of light which try to guide his thoughts in such a way that their goal is God and His rule and activity. If the human being accepts the thought currents coming to him, then he will very soon call wisdoms his own which were imparted to him from the kingdom beyond and which he also accepts with conviction as truth. Every human being can feel these thought currents. But they are little noticed and rarely do people realize where the thoughts come from and what they actually are. They don't see them as an expression of strength by spiritual beings and therefore don't attach the right value to them. They believe to be the originators of thoughts themselves and don't know that they only accept or reject the thoughts flowing towards them through their free will, but that they are first brought to them by spiritual beings and want to be taken up before they can become the human being's own thought material. The human being as such would not be able to let a thought come into being since it is spiritual strength which, however, is not yet available to him to the extent that he himself can generate thoughts. To a certain extent he first borrows the strength from the spiritual kingdom, from where it is also willingly offered to him, and through this supply of strength he shall mature spiritually, that is the knowledge which is mentally offered to him shall lead him to realization and the right realization shall let him find the path to ascent through conscious striving for perfection. Without this knowledge he will never be able to develop ascend, and knowledge is only the result of his thoughts which are conveyed to him by spiritual beings. It is the human being's free will to take hold of the thoughts, to dwell on them, to request further thoughts through questions and thereby acquire spiritual wealth or to reject them immediately and not pay attention to them. But he also has to answer for this free will, for then he leaves the strength flowing towards him unused, and his knowledge, his realization, will be accordingly. The spiritual beings constantly strive towards people, time and again they try to make themselves heard by them and constantly force themselves upon them. But the human being cannot be forced to accept the thoughts, and therefore people have very different degrees of realization, depending on their will. Yet the same knowledge is at all people's disposal as soon as they just hand themselves over to the spiritual forces and increase their mental knowledge, which is offered to them through the knowing being's love. Amen.